Welcome once again to the Schmidt Show here on News Radio 1029 KARN. I am your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501-403-KARN is the phone number, 501-403-5276 if you would like to be a part of the discussion today. Of course, it is Free Speech Friday, so anything you want to talk about is fair game. We'll talk about anything and everything. We'll change subjects as quickly as you would like, or we can just stand on one subject and beat it to a bloody pulp if that is what you choose to do. That is the beauty of Free Speech Friday. We talk about whatever you want. Monday through Thursday here on The Schmidt Show, I am the benevolent dictator that determines the direction of the show. On Free Speech Fridays, I turn the radios over to you. So we're glad you're here and glad you're spending a little bit of time with us and talking about the various things that we need to talk about today. If you can't think of anything to talk about, I've got some ideas for you. Of course, there's been a lot going on, and there's a lot to get to today on the show, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we kick things off. Of course, the big story over the last several days, Brian Malinowski, the former director of the Little Rock Airport, has unfortunately passed away from injuries sustained in a shootout with the ATF, who attempted to serve a search warrant on his home on Tuesday morning. And he was shot in the head. Of course, he ended up in the hospital and on life support. He passed away yesterday, somewhere around noon-ish. We don't really have an exact time frame. And last night, I don't know what time, but shortly after I went off the air with the Schmidt Show, the ATF or the deputy U.S. attorney, whoever's in charge of that, released the details of the search warrant affidavit. Now, it's not the actual search warrant. The search warrant affidavit is a listing of the evidence to the judge who would then sign off on the search warrant being allowed. And there's some pretty crazy allegations in this search warrant. And I don't mean crazy as in like far-fetched and unbelievable, but crazy in just the general understanding of this whole situation. It gets crazier by the moment. Every time we learn a little bit more information, we find out that it was a little bit crazier than we originally thought. It appears as if, I took the time last night to read through the search warrant, it appears as if that it was a legitimate search warrant over a legitimate potential crime that was being committed, and the Mr. Malinowski was engaged in some nefarious behavior, to say the least. So I'm certain that this will come up as part of the discussion today. I'm certain that we'll hear lots and lots about that whole situation. But we're not going to spend the entire day there. There is a lot other stuff going on right here locally in our community and, of course, around the world. One of the stories you ought to know about as we talk about what you ought to know, Donald Trump and Truth Social apparently in the works to merge with another social media company. This is news that's literally just breaking in the last couple of hours. Donald Trump potentially could pocket several $1 billion as the Truth Social platform could be merging with another media outlet. I'm not sure what the value of this would be. I don't know the details of the story, but it could be one way that Donald Trump gets access to some cash so that he can then potentially use that cash to pay the bond that he is required to pay for his court cases. But I think there's even more to it than that. I think part of what is going on there is this is not uncommon. This is not uncommon for these tech companies to do this kind of thing. And one thing we do know about Donald Trump, love him or hate him, agree with him or disagree with him, really throwing politics out the window entirely, we know that Donald Trump is a very effective marketer. He's really good at marketing his products in a way that make them valuable to people. And so it is not uncommon in the tech world to build a product, to build a platform, to build a website, to build a tech startup, if you will, for the sole purpose of attracting investors down the road. And so it's very possible that that was maybe part of this thought process by Donald Trump in the first place. It may very well be that he was intending to build True Social, to build it into a platform on which people would want to interact and potentially advertisers would want to advertise, and then be able to sell it to another tech company that could take it kind of to the next level. I mean, that is not an uncommon position, and it certainly wouldn't have been a stupid decision had Donald Trump planned that from the beginning. In fact, it would indicate that Donald Trump may actually be a wise businessman in planning ahead and going, look, I could create this True Social thing. It could compete with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And it's got my name on it, and it will be worth several $100 million and maybe even a few $1 billion. I think Donald Trump, making a wise decision in that. I don't know. I'd have to see the details of it a little bit more closely and dig through the who the company is selling to and all that kind of stuff. But this is an interesting development. What happens with True Social? If Donald Trump isn't a part of True Social, does anybody care anymore? Because that's the other part of the problem, right? Part of what makes places like Tesla and SpaceX and Neuralink and all of the other companies that Elon Musk is involved in is Elon Musk himself. Now, the Tesla cars are really cool. They go super fast. Of course, SpaceX is able to deliver payloads into space, and you got Starlink satellite and all of that. But part of what makes those companies interesting is Elon Musk himself. Part of what makes Microsoft attractive to various investors and things is that it's Microsoft. Not necessarily Bill Gates so much, but that little Windows icon that has come to kind of personify or define Microsoft computer software. So there's some question as to the value of what that will be if Donald Trump is not involved. But I'm not sure that he necessarily has to be involved in the business side of it. I think just the fact that he's on the platform and using the platform is an attraction. So, and I'm guessing there's probably some sort of agreement in the details somewhere, in the contract somewhere, that we buy it, you have to stay on it, and you have to even stay off of Twitter. Because if you're not on True Social and instead you're over at Twitter, then nobody's going to want to be on True Social anymore. They're going to want to head over back to Twitter and be with President Trump there instead. So we'll get into that discussion. Of course, that will certainly come up. We've got an interview lined up that one of our sister stations did. Broadway Joe, one of our other stations here through Cumulus Media, did an interview with Sheriff Eric Higgins concerning this news story that is being talked about and his experience with the Netflix series Unlocked in the Pulaski County Jail. So, of course, we'll air that interview. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also coming up, Todd Starnes. For those of you, of course, that remember listening to KRN in the past and you still listen to Todd on the weekends, you know who Todd Starnes is. You know his voice and what he stands for. He's going to be joining us. Is it at 2:36, 2:46? 2:36? 2:36. He's going to be joining us talking about his new book. He's got a new book out, and that should be a very interesting conversation. I've come to really, really respect Todd and his views and thoughts on stuff, and so I'll be looking forward to having that conversation about his new book as well. So all of that coming up, and for those of you who have maybe tuned in just the last few minutes, whether it is through our Twitter account or whether it is through our YouTube page, or whether it is through our website at newsradio1029.com, and under the on-demand tab, there's a little link that says KRN TV. Those of you who have been watching me for the last few minutes, talking about all of the things that we're going to be talking about on video on those platforms, you're going to have to come over here and join us on the radio and join us on the app and join us on the website Listen Live link, because we're trying to do some experimentation with video, but we're not going to just air 8 hours of me staring into a camera talking at you. So if you're listening there on the website, if you're listening through the Twitter account, through the YouTube channel, watching the video, we're going to be actually shutting that down during the break here. So come on over and join us on the radio, on the app, or on our website. We'll continue in a moment on News Radio 102.9 KRN.